Welcome to the Black Queens on Stage podcast, presented by Black Literature and Art Queens Network, where we bring our queens to the stage. You're listening to the recorded audio of a special Facebook Live episode called The Black Actor Conference. To watch the full video version, you can visit the Facebook page at facebook.com/BLAQ Show Michigan or at blaqn.org. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Black Queens on Stage podcast. Thank you for joining us again, where we honor and acknowledge Black women performers and discuss racial issues within Michigan performing venues. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Didn't realize that my microphone was muted. So let's go ahead and introduce our panel, shall we? We have Dinah Tutein.
Hold on. Start video. Seriously? Okay, there I am. Hi.
Hi. Jonathan Jones.
Good morning, all.
Dan Johnson.
Oh, hello, everybody. Good to see you.
And we have 4 additional new panelists today. I'm very excited to hear their stories and their perspectives. First off, we have Shardai Davis.
Greetings, all.
Jeffery Nelson.
Hey, everybody.
Show us your video, Jeffrey.
Oh, there I am. Hey, everybody.
Ryan Kayla.
Hi, loves.
And last but not least, he joined us on the Q&A last week, Miles Bond.
You were about to say Miles Davis, weren't you?
I sure was. I was sure about to put him on celebrity status.
You can definitely call me Miles Davis. I was named after Miles Davis. What's up, y'all? Hey.
It's just so funny because I'm looking at Shardai's name at the same time I wrote down Miles's name. So yeah. So anyway, thank you all for joining me. I totally appreciate this. You have no idea. And welcome to our new panelists. Like, I really appreciate that you guys have joined us in on this conversation because it's definitely needed where we need, more than just one perspective, more than one story. So let me just reiterate that this conference is designed to be a safe space for Black actors and to share their experience without the consequence of being blackballed or harassed by their white counterparts or ADs. We will not mention names, theaters, productions, or the like, but we hope that those that are viewing this will listen, empathize, change, and adapt. So, last where we left off at white actors altering Black roles. And we touched on that briefly. Whoop. Ignore this one, ignore this slide. But we touched briefly on when white actors are cast in roles that are specific to a Black person. Mm-hmm. So casting white actors as they are in originally Black or POC roles is as damaging, if not more, than blackfacing or color-coded clothing. Doing all 3 forms of racist casting continues to spread the message that theaters are not looking out for us, that we don't exist in their eyes, that we are easily replaceable, and that we can't speak our truth. So I would like for you guys to explain a situation where you knew of a white actor getting the role that was originally for a Black person or a person of color. And aside from the obvious of hiring BIPOC actors or for BIPOC roles, what are ways white theater leadership can bring more BIPOCs to their theaters and keep them there and attract more?
Well, I've got a story on that one.
Please do share.
I was in a production of Aida at a particular theater. And that's a pretty big cast. So we had a lot of diversity at auditions. So one of the one of the lead characters. Well, I guess you could call it a principal role, but it was a small role. The role of Nehepka um, was cast by a white actress. And, the whole story of Aida is about race. So there were other white actors in the ensemble who were also cast as Nubians. And I guess, sometimes it's hard to get a lot of Black actors, in certain roles, especially in community theater, because they aren't getting paid. It is hard sometimes. I get that it's hard to cast, which is why they had, I guess, for lack of a better term, a colorblind cast. But there were certainly other Black actresses who could sing as good or better as a white actress. There were other Black actresses in the ensemble. And I could not for the life of me understand why, since they had the resources, it would be different if they didn't, but they had the resources. And they chose, a white actress instead. And the show was very successful, but it was just, I can just speak for myself. To me, it just kind of threw me for a loop because it just didn't make sense because they had, plenty of people that they had to choose from to cast for that role. But I think one of the things I think that theaters struggle with, especially white theaters, is that they want to do Black shows. They do want to try something new. They want to bring in a different audience, but I think what they seem to be afraid of is to commit to doing that consistently, and that's a problem, because once you bring these people in and they're so excited about doing this show, and they want to keep new people that come in. These theaters want, new actors and actresses to be members of their theater. But then the following season, there's nothing on the roster that they can identify with. So, they're like, okay, well, let me just move on to the next theater. And then they don't understand why they can't.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I was going to say that's actually another one of our topics too.
Okay, but that's a problem, is that they do these types of things and then they wonder why they can't retain diversity, amongst the membership.
Wow, yeah. My story was going to be similar to that one. I don't know if it was the same production, but I did remember seeing a production of Aida. And I remember being blown away by most of the principal cast, and then I just couldn't stay in it because all the Nubians were white. And I think something that would help maybe bring more actors of color, maybe even in community theater or wherever, is just hire more people of color on the creative team and hire more people of color as like directors in those higher roles as well. And I think that would actually too make other people who are of color be more comfortable in these spaces to audition for these shows and all that. And then you wouldn't have that problem of not having the correct race or facial whatever or anything like that. It wouldn't be as much of a problem, but you just have to be open to that kind of thing as a theater.
I think honestly, I went out for said production that he's talking about, and granted, while I was very much green and needed some help and some guidance, it would have been lovely for someone to have reached out and been like, here's the things that you need to know for next time, and here's the things that can help you on your journey. But it honestly just felt like such a punch in the gut being an actress of color, because I was like, they're giving my 110%, and then you gonna cast a bunch of white people to play Nubians? That didn't make any sense to me, especially when I finally saw the production. So I think it really made me have to take a step back and be like, I don't know if I want to go out and audition for y'all again, because that didn't make any kind of sense to me. But also, with that being said, I have a younger friend. He's a great little actor and everything like that. But he also was in a production where the 3 title characters, I don't know if y'all know Once on This Island, but the 3 title characters are Black people. And this little boy went out and was cast as one of, I forget what they're called, but like one of the like deities that helps what's her name on her way. And I thought that was nuts. I'm like, how are you?
So I take it that your friend is white.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And while it was a great experience for him, and I think he loved it, and it was a children's like themed Once on This Island, I couldn't even bring myself to go see it, because I was like, I don't understand how they're gonna have a bunch of white children playing these, like, they're supposed to be like African gods.
I think with that show in particular, Once on This Island, what gravitates people, particularly white people, that the most about that show is that it's a Caribbean retelling of The Little Mermaid. And you know, that's the key word in that descriptor, Caribbean. So it's gonna be a story revolving around brown and Black people, you know, and that's the whole premise between the two, because you have Daniel, the character, who is supposed to be this light-skinned young Black man, and then you have Timoon, who's supposed to be a dark-skinned young Black woman. And you know, having those two worlds collide is what the big premise of the story is. But Jesus almighty, I don't understand the idea of having white actors in Once on This Island. Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. I'll start off with a fun story. When I was a very young theater kid, I was part of a community theater production of Once on This Island, where my sister and I combined, because we are biracial, were the only Black person involved in any aspect of the production. So that was fun. I just want to pick up on something that Ryan had said, because it's something that, like, to my soul, when we're talking about the ways in which Black actors, Black, Indigenous, people of color, Latinx actors, all of us are excluded from the very beginning. Ryan had talked about going out for a production and admitting that she was a younger actor, a greener actor, who could have used a little bit of guidance, but still was giving it 110%. And yet, when it came time to the actual casting process, a white actor was picked for the role instead. One of the things that I've talked about in terms of my own personal experience is that one of the reasons I've been able to do what I've been able to do in theater is because I was given those opportunities to fail and to learn and to be that younger actor who just needs that little bit of guidance to get themselves to the next level. And there are so many of us out there who were like that, but did not get those opportunities. You know, and so then the pool already becomes smaller in terms of people that you're able to even see. And then you get into a situation where all of a sudden, oh, we happen to need a Black actor, and we also want to cast a Black actor. Touching back on something that Jeffrey said in terms of colorblind casting, one of the things I tend to find funny is that for a lot of theaters, colorblind casting only tends to work one way, which is to say they find it perfectly acceptable to take a role that is written for a Latinx person or for a Black person or for a Native person and give it to a white actor. But the reverse almost never is the case. But when you get into those situations where, okay, we need a Black person for this role and we're going to look for a Black person in this role, through no fault of their own other than just not being given the opportunities or being discouraged from pursuing those opportunities. Because to be in that situation where you're just starting out and you're still giving it your all, and it doesn't matter because the part goes to a white person anyways, I can completely understand not wanting to try again. I can completely understand how over time, if you continue to experience those sort of things, that becomes completely demoralizing. But when you do get in those situations where theaters are looking for Black actors in Black roles and decide to seek out Black actors, so many Black actors find themselves at a disadvantage just because they haven't had those chances. But then people in charge of these theaters who are predominantly white and who don't walk in with the assumption that there is such a thing as discrimination because it's not something that happens to them, happen to see someone who may not present as polished as a white actor and go, oh, well, I guess it's just that the Black actors aren't as good. And that is something that I continue to see and I continue to hear about, and it continues to break my heart every single time. Just wanted
If
to
I can
say
just
that.
piggyback on what Dan just said, I think when we look at the process of casting, what people don't realize from the outside looking in is that it is extremely political. It is extremely political, depending on the theater, depending on the show, depending on the director. It's very political, and there's so many outside dynamics going on that people just don't realize, and that in and of itself is a problem, especially for people of color. I was listening to a podcast by something similar to this format by one of the Broadway actors a few weeks ago, and this person said, you know, white people don't need us to do whatever they want to do on Broadway, but we can't do anything on Broadway without going through them. And so that lets you know they're just, you know, how political, how huge the political process of casting a show is. And being a person of color, you know, whether it be community theater, professional theater, Broadway, it's just extremely political.
Yeah, there's definitely a big level of elitism that goes into it as well, where people feel entitled walking into a theater, feel completely entitled for whatever role, not even thinking about it. I was at an audition for In the Heights once before, and there was this white actress that was going for the role of, I believe it was either Nina or Vanessa, and they just felt so entitled and so like they were gonna get it, not understanding that that role, it's not for you. It's not for you. The show is, you know, and that's it's frustrating. It's really frustrating, and it's well, even more frustrating, as Dan said, to just go into a situation like that already being defeated by it. That sucks. That really sucks.
And kind of to go on what you were talking about, Miles, keeping in with the same theme of not mentioning shows, but there is a very well-known Black musical where I auditioned for it and I performed in it, but when I went to the audition, as I was leaving the audition, there was a young white woman that came in, and I had to kind of do a double take, like, what is she doing here? She wasn't part of the choreography team or part of the stage management or crew team or anything like that. She was there to audition for this well-known Black musical. And I was told by the person who was the director, they said, well, we couldn't tell her no, but obviously she wasn't going to get it. But just the absolute audacity where you know that a show such as that is for Black actors. It's about Black people. It's about their Black struggles and their plight, that you would walk yourself into the audition and think that you were going to get it. That's just,
Well, but would they have walked into the audition if they hadn't encountered a similar scenario where that had worked out for them?
Yeah, that's true. And I'm grateful of the director that I had, because for one, he listened to us. He listened to us the entire time of that show. And the other part about it was that he respected the fact that a show like this had to be nothing but Black people in it, period. He was definitely adamant about that. And that's because I asked him, I said, well, did she audition for the show? He said, yep. We couldn't tell her no, but she wasn't going to get it regardless.
Oh, sorry. Do you mind if I ask if was it a Black director or a white director?
White director. He was very adamant about that. He wanted to stay true to the actual show. You can't ask for any more than that, you know. And there's nothing wrong with having a white director directing a Black show, so long as you actually listen to your actors. If they're telling you that something just doesn't fit, or if they have to do it in a particular way for the correct message to come across, then directors need to listen. That's key. I had another situation where, and this was it was actually a positive situation, where this show is, for anybody that knows me, this show is my guilty pleasure. I love watching this musical. And the character that I played in it was this eccentric helper. You know, it's in a positive light. I'm just going to say what the name of the show was. It was Rocky Horror Show. Love that show. I absolutely love that show. And I played Riff Raff. So I absolutely loved that show. It was one of the first and only shows that I actually went into audition for where I had no clue what the show was about. I just know I wanted to be in it. So they cast me as Riff Raff. They loved every bit of it. However, there was a point in the show, mind you, I was the first and only Black person that ever got that role with that theater. And there was a moment in the show where Dr. Frankenfurter is beating Riff Raff. And so Riff Raff dives to the floor. He says, "No, master, no." When I first read through that script and through that part, it didn't hit me until I physically had to do it. And I was talking to the actor that was playing Frankenfurter. And I told him, you know, I hope the audience doesn't see any type of slavery notion connected to this because of who I am. He was scared and mortified. He didn't know what to do. He talked to the director about it. She came over to me. She was like, "I don't want you to think that it's this at all." You know, she was very nervous, but I knew that that's not what that meant. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when you have a different actor than what is normally for that role is playing this role, like for me, normally Riff Raff is played by a white man. I am a Black woman. Me playing this role completely changes the contextual level of Riff Raff, you know, to a point where the director, the actor playing the main character, it never occurred to them to even think of it in that sense, you know? And it, like I said, I knew that it didn't mean that way, but I wanted to let them know, like, hey, you know, you may have some audience members that may think of it this way, just to let you know and to forewarn you. But either way, you know, we did it for our time, and we did a great job. We had fun with it. Yeah, Dinah knows what show I'm talking about.
I think you brought up something pretty important in that, though, is that yes, by your playing Riff Raff, there was a recontextualization of that character and that character in the show. And I think that's something that a lot of times people get concerned about. But we're not talking about insurmountable problems. We're talking about things that very easily can be solved with discussions and talking with your actors, or talking with creative teams, or talking with, if you have the opportunity to be in the room with them, talking with a playwright. You know, I have personally done shows where I have been playing a character who originally was, race wasn't specified, but the playwright had been writing for a white person in mind. And then I was playing that character. Well, I've been in situations where the playwright has been in the room and something has been an issue and it was a discussion and it got fixed. You know, things like that, I don't think are automatic excuses to just dismiss out of hand the idea of, you know, casting of people of color, or, you know, picking shows and using this idea of color conscious casting or race transcendent casting. You know, the best person for the part gets the part, period. Just talk. Like, it's okay. These, you know, these are, relatively speaking, easy things to solve.
Anything else anybody else wants to say before we move on?
Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good.
I've been told I talk a lot, so you go ahead.
You are all good. No, I just remembered one of my very good girlfriends, and since it's nowhere around here, I can say it. She went out for one of the national tours of Hamilton. Now, she is a white girl, and I love her. That's my best good girlfriend. But she loves telling this story of how she didn't necessarily get cast because I guess in the beginning of Hamilton's like run or something like this, they had a thing on there that said kind of like white actors don't need to come out to this. That's not what we're looking for. And she just thought that was the heartbreak of her little life. She just, for some reason, like, she dines out on this story, and I love her. And if she's listening, I love you dearly. But like, for me, I was like, well, we only get 5 shows. Hello Dolly is right up the street. What is the problem? It was bananas to me because I'm like, I only get to go out for so many things, and this is so uniquely for people of color. Why, unless you're going out for King George, why?
Not Hello Dolly, though.
Yes, Hello Dolly, though. And also, thank you to anyone who's watching. Thank you. We all know that Hamilton dropped. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us.
We know that it dropped at 3 a.m. this morning and that you binged it in the middle of your sleep. So we appreciate you watching us tonight.
Thank you, bless you, all of you.
Okay.
I did want to say one thing real quick.
Yeah.
What can white actors do when they are cast in a Black or POC role? This is going to be really hard, and I can give a personal experience I had with it. Turn the part down. All of us want to work. All of us want to work. But if we're talking about things that are meant for certain people or not meant for certain people, turn the part down. I can think of one specific instance where I was offered a role. The character wasn't written to be of any particular race or ethnicity, but the character was transgender. And I was asked if I would consider this role. And I said no. Respectfully, I appreciate that you're looking at me for this part. I appreciate that you think I might be able to do this part. I am not a trans person. I cannot speak to that experience. It would be wrong for me to try. So that's what I would say. Turn it down. I love and respect so many people in the Michigan theater community. None of us wants to be out of work. Every single one of us, if we're offered a part, wants to take the part. That actually is one of, I think, the easiest things that someone could do to actually show their support for these kinds of issues that we're talking about. If you're offered a part that is written for a person of color and you happen to be white, turn the part down.
Let's move on to another topic that I didn't get a chance to actually put on the slide, but it came to me last week as I was getting ready for today. And that's, and it kind of falls along the same lines of microaggression, but also a little bit deeper. And I refer to this as coded language. So it is a tactic that is used in a seemingly it is a tactic that uses seemingly non-racist words, but are actually used contextually in a racist way. Mm. So what do I mean by that? What I've experienced in with a show is that in this show, I was part of the administrative creative team, and there was a Black woman who was very talented, and she came in to audition for this role that is always played by a white woman predominantly. And there was another white woman in this audition process that was auditioning for it. Both women were really great. However, the Black woman, when I watched her, she actually had stage presence. She was in the character. She was 100% there the entire time. So when it came down to, and she also sang as well. Her voice was great. So was the white actress. But the way that the Black actress sang it was very similar to how it has been sung recently. There was a movie on this musical that was done, and she sang it in the way that was done in that movie. Whereas with the white actress, she sang it in a way that I guess she heard off of the soundtrack, something like that. So when it came down to deliberating between who we needed for this prominent character, the music director said, well, character A, who was the Black actress, she says she sings it very modern. Whereas with actor B, who was the white actress, she sings it traditionally. So, and she posed the question to the director, do you want modern or do you want traditional? And the director said, I want traditional. This is a clear example of coded language, where having a Black woman, not just Black, but she was dark-skinned as well, having her playing this prominent role when it's normally played by white women, and having her play that role is too progressive of a move for this theater and for their white old audience members. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Anybody would like to chime in with any story?
But we hear that all the time, don't we?
Yes.
You know,
microaggression.
In so many different ways. You know, could you pull it back? Could you not be quite so spiritual? You know, could you not be quite so church? Or could you not be quite so hood? Or could you be more urban? Could you be more contemporary? You know, would you be able to bring a little hip hop to it? You know how it is in these streets.
It's the way he said that. Sorry.
Like, are you saying like black it up for you? Is that what you're saying? Because that is what you're saying. And you know, I'm an adult. You're an adult. I would appreciate if you at least had the decency to ask what you actually want to ask. I would appreciate it more if you just didn't ask in the first place. But yeah, I think we've all experienced those sorts of things.
Like, I went out for a particular show, and it was like the first paid gig I had ever got. So I was just over the moon, like, oh, you can, if you ask me to do anything, I'm gonna do whatever you say. Get in there, and yes, the part was for, you know, your stereotypical, I go in there, I belt, I riff, I do my little thing. Asks me
beautifully,
to
by the
sing
way.
it. Oh, thank you. Asks me to sing it, S-A-N-G, instead of sing it. And I said, that's
okay.
That's what we're doing today. I mean, y'all are paying me, so I'm gonna go do it. But I know you just didn't ask me, though. Like, I couldn't believe. I was like, okay, that's all right. That's exactly what I'm going to do then, I guess. I'm going to take my little black behind and sang it.
There was a another separate situation where I was part of an ensemble. And in the way that this show worked, it was kind of like it had two different ensembles. You had like the main ensemble and then the secondary ensemble. I was the secondary ensemble. And I was in the dressing room and I was practicing going through my lines for the next show that I was getting ready to do. And I heard the main cast, the main character, who was a Black woman, a dark-skinned Black woman, and a one of the white actresses who happened to be the AD's kid, grown woman though. And the AD kid was helping the Black actress with her wig. Now, the way that the dressing room was set up, you had one section for the men, one section for the women. I was in the section for the women with the curtains draped. They didn't know I was in there. So I overheard the AD kid tell the Black actress, you know, the board was trying to figure out what to do with your hair. They weren't sure if to give you a straight wig or a wig that had a blowout. So, because they were trying to figure out what to do based on who was playing your boyfriend, they were trying to soften your looks. So when I heard this, I immediately became irate. I poked my head out the curtain and I said, soften? You mean whiten her looks? And I receded back into the curtain. Silence. Absolute silence. How that happened 2 years ago. That bothers me to this day. And come to find out, this AD kid actually auditioned for the role that this Black woman got, and the role is for a Black woman. So it really bothers me to hear something like that that another actor would even say that to a Black actor regarding their hair, regarding their features. You know, and that kind of goes back to what we were talking about 2 weeks ago in the first part, where for us as Black women, our hair, our features, our looks, that's for us to worry about, not you. Period. We know how to take care of our hair. We know if we have to put it up, pin curl it, cornroll it, whatever, to put on a wig, that's what we'll do, and we'll have it done and taken care of. And that's something that you don't need to worry about.
I was in a show back home in New York, and the director, the late great Peter, I still miss you, Peter. He actually told me there was an audience member who was mad because I was playing the store owner. That because in the movie the store owner was white, and you know, a Black woman shouldn't have been playing that role. He was like, I cast whom I see fit for the role. He was like, don't worry, but he told me, he was like, don't worry about it. He said, you were perfect for the role and people are just stupid. But yeah, I was just like, really? They were mad because I was playing the store owner. Okay. But yeah, there's people they're actually going to be mad because, you know, if they see a role that if it in the movies they're played by a white person or whatever. Even when in casting with, there was a film, the Hunger Games, when it was I think Senna was played by, I know it was played by, I think it was Larry Kravitz or whomever. Don't mind my brain. But there were people who were mad about that, you know, and there was the young Black actress who, the little girl, they were mad about that because there were Black people in Hunger Games. It's like, and you want to hit them with a shoe
All the Negroes
or
got
something,
killed
but
off.
really,
All the Negroes got killed off. We didn't
Yeah,
make it to the apocalypse.
They did. But it's just like I said, they'll actually come out and be mad, and it's like, wait a minute, but it's supposed to be diverse casting. You're supposed to be broad-minded and look at everybody. So now you're going to have coded language, and now you're going to say stuff like actually what you were just saying about softening looks. The audacity, the outright gall. I mean, the audacity. I think I know you said you poked your head out first. I would have been like, what? Wait, did I hear what?
You know I'm going to break out one of my favorite phrases here.
Uh-oh,
the audacity of the caucasity. The audacity of the caucasity.
I was too scared to say it.
Can I quote you on that?
I'm not sure.
Oh, please do.
Or just, I guess they're not realizing what what was said. They're just speaking their mind as to what they were thinking, or it could have been a subtle dig, maybe, I don't know. But I mean, yeah, you just get, and you're looking, and it's like, at least me, half the time, I'm just like, what?
Let's move on to the next topic.
Can I get in there real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. It's just, and again, this goes back to what we were talking about a couple weeks ago. As actors, as artists, as theater aficionados, we are to reflect the reality of the world in which we live. And the issue that we tend to have in Michigan theater and theater in this country is that the reality of the world that we're reflecting is constantly shifting and changing and moving away from traditional. And that scares the traditionalist, because that means there's no roles for me. That means that there's no place for me. If you are now diversifying your cast, where does that leave the older Caucasian man? I don't have a role now, and so I'm afraid to go against the tide or even cast the most prolific person for this role, because that means that they'll then be cast in the next role, and then the next role, and then the next role, and that means that I don't have a role or a role or a role, even to the point where if they do up the ante and change it up, or they change it back, like Dan was saying, they don't have turning down the role. Like, turning down the role means that I might never get a role again. And I'm so afraid. The theater itself is so afraid of going against the tide, because my audience is my revenue. And that is so frightening, to not be able to cast the people that have, in our minds, held the theater up. That is so frightening to them, that they would rather shut out an entire sect of people and their talents and their skills and their abilities, rather than to go against the tide and theoretically alienate a potential audience member.
Dan, fix your face, first of all.
Okay, sorry. Because like Jonathan, I love you. I love your perspective. Always, always, always. And I appreciate you saying that. The thing that I may have been reacting to is this idea of traditionalism, and that this is the way that we have always done things, and we are therefore afraid to alienate the people for whom we have always done things, because the people for whom we have always done things have been the people that have supported us. But even within that, you're already excluding so many potential audiences. You're already excluding so many potential artists. You're already excluding so many potential experiences and perspectives and ideas that could, if you were to allow them in, if we're talking about potentially, why look at it from a potential negative standpoint of we might be alienating potentially these people versus we might potentially positively be bringing in all of these different other people who could in time help to lift our theaters up.
Let me just reiterate, it's not my opinion. It's not what I'm not here for it. These are just the things that I have actually witnessed. This is like, There was a production I was a part of, and the show took years for this theater company to actually put up, because so many of their creative staff, so many people of their community were feeling like this show in particular would be damaging to the image, because this show didn't showcase their traditional imaging. And they had to go outside of their traditional casting to get the cast that was necessary to actually do this show correctly. But what ended up happening, and that goes to your point, when the show went up, it became, at that time, the most successful show this company had done to that point. And it opened up a doorway to bring in a whole larger audience. Their old audience didn't leave, it increased. But the fear that the old audience would leave and there's no new audience to come in, or mostly that the new audience won't reflect who they see themselves as. And I think that might be the biggest fear. I need to still see me. And we, as people of color, are very used to not seeing us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I want this role because I'm going after this role because I feel like I can tell this story, as opposed to, that looks like me. Like, we have been so rarefied in seeing something that looks like me that it's above me now. So
can I jump in real quick on traditionalism? So as an actor who is also a dancer,
Rubik's Cube.
in the dance world, and someone who does traditional dance, like ballet and jazz, there's this thing when you go to dance auditions that most ballet shoes are pink, ballet pink. And so sometimes they don't cast you if you are Black. You could be a very good Black ballet dancer, but because the shoe stands out too much on your foot and doesn't mix in with the costuming, they don't hire you because of that. You could be the best ballet dancer in the world, but that pink ballet shoe doesn't fit you. And I went out for an audition. I actually got cast in one, and this whole shoe issue came up. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, there's not any other options, but they're like, well, it's not, the pink ballet shoe is not meant to match anyone's color, but it's more closely to your color than it is to my color. And so now this has created this problem that I didn't create. So why can't we change the, color of the ballet shoes to match, the skin tones, or the tights even, for that matter, and that's something that's been slowly but surely changing in the dance world, is that there are more options for tight color and shoe color in these dance forms that are traditionally housed by, many white people. So I just wanted to share that experience with you.
Okay, so let's move on to the next topic, and that is character archetypes that white people don't see or want for Black actors. So harmful characteristics that are assigned to BIPOC characters accentuate harmful stereotypes that are appeasing to white audiences and have actors limited. Black women are never seen as the love interest. Asian people are never seen outside of the tech wizard or the doctor characteristic. Latinx people are pegged as the Latin lover trope. Black people are always assigned as the help or the laborer of some kind, etc. Black actors and actors of color are capable of more than the stereotypical tropes written in racist literature. So I want you guys to explain a moment where you denied a role, but offered a stereotypical role instead. And how can theaters break the cycle of casting BIPOCs in harmful stereotypes?
It's just about just more so like humanizing us as well, you know, being able to see outside of this box that they created, that we can only do this one thing and that's the only thing that we're good at. There were multiple occasions where I felt that I couldn't be seen as this because of the color of my skin, and that's horrible. But there have also been experiences where I've seen myself for a role that's usually white, and I've gotten it, and it was one of the most magical experiences ever. And it was believable, and people, I hope, enjoyed the iteration. So I don't know. It's just like we're no different. Well, we're I'm at a loss for words, but no, it's really just thinking outside the box, and not necessarily having to try to think outside the box, and just like see what the person provides before you automatically make an assumption. And that kind of behavior is like ingrained in us. It's learned, and it's something that's definitely really hard to snap out of instantly or whatever. But it's just, I don't know, just try to do that. It's a great answer, and that was kind of wonky, but yeah.
I had
Oh, go
the
ahead, Ryan.
Oh, sorry. I had the experience of being able to play a mother to 4 white children. Now, how I approached it was, this is gonna be like the Cinderella version. Like, y'all know Brandy's Cinderella.
Right.
Color didn't matter at all. So that's how I approached playing it. I was like, well, we just gonna be here, and these are my children, and that's all you need to know. Come to find out, it wasn't a show that was saw by a whole bunch of people. It was kind of just done in the church basement, what have you. But a lot of my white co-stars, their families came to see it and assumed I was the maid. And one of my friends felt the need to tell me this in a joking manner, because I guess, she was like, that's not your part, and yada, da, da, da. But it took something away from me, because I was doing the absolute best that I could with the material that I was given. I know I needed a little help in like the dance wise part of it, but I know I was singing my little heart out. So my thought was, why can't it? Theater is an escape. You are meant to have a certain, disbelief when you go. I don't necessarily have to be the maid. I could just be the person looking after them, even if you don't. Like, why is that the first thing you go to? Like, I could have just been, hell, I could have been the fucking babysitter. It doesn't matter. But the fact that you went to maid first,
because America is racist.
Yeah. It took something away from the performance for me. Like, after hearing that, like the last weekend, I was kind of just like, well, I got to do the best I can with what I'm given. But if everyone's going to continuously think that I'm the maid in this production when I'm supposed to be the mama.
That kind of goes back to, there was an issue, not an issue, but there was a businessman or a reporter, something of the kind, where he was in his room doing some kind of virtual conference or of some kind. Mm-hmm. And the baby walks in, as cute as she can be. And then his wife, who was Asian, immediately people thought that was the baby's caregiver or nanny or whatever, not really correlating that this is somebody that he exchanged vows with, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
I think, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to share. I had a similar experience. We already mentioned this show earlier. We did discuss Little Mermaid, and so a few years ago, I auditioned at a theater for the part of Sebastian, and it was a reach because the songs were way too high for me. But I went for it. So before the auditions were over, I mean, I knew I wasn't going to get cast in that because, like I said, the songs were just way too high for me. But before I left, they offered me the part of Grimsby, which is the prince's, basically his butler. And, I didn't research the role, hadn't tried out for it or anything. I didn't know anything about it. And, instinctively, because they asked me and I didn't audition, I thought, oh yeah. and I didn't know enough about it. And then after I got home and started, doing the research, I was like, I don't think I want to do this. And subsequently, the following day, I just dropped out. I turned it down. But I guess that's really the answer to the question. And Dan mentioned that earlier. It's just how can theaters break the cycle of casting and harmful stereotypes when we start turning the roles down?
Mm-hmm. And I think that also plays into theaters, directors, artistic directors being mindful of when they cast people in particular roles. Like if you have a role for a butler, the last person that you should be asking to play that role is a Black person.
Exactly.
Like that,
and when it's it's a white male role traditionally,
right?
That's how it's supposed to be cast. So
right,
immediately it was just somebody had an epiphany, right there when I'm auditioning for the role of Sebastian. They get an epiphany. Oh yeah, he can be Grimsby. So yeah.
That kind of goes back to like what I was saying before, when you have to be careful when you're casting people, you have to be careful of the context of when you're casting someone for a role, and you have to be careful of the language that's being used, because it can mean something completely different when it's in regards to somebody of a different race than what's normally cast in that role.
I will this this actually doesn't involve a role I did, but it does involve an audition that I went on. It was actually for a callback I had gotten for a particular show. And so in the first place, I did not get the sides for the actual callback until the day of the callback. A couple of hours before the callback, when I already had a callback at another theater. So I wasn't even really given the time to do any kind of research. So I get the sides. I look at the sides. There in the sides was a role for a character who I'm guessing was the romantic lead, a young guy, basically late 20s to early 30s. Cool. Okay. I'm going to guess I'm a guy in my late 20s to early 30s. I'm going to audition for that. So, because the email also did not specify who they were bringing me in to audition for. So I just make a guess. Okay, I'll audition for the romantic lead, which I know is a stretch, but that's how I tend to approach every audition. I get to the theater. I prepare the side with another actor. I come in, I do the side. Everybody in the room on the other side of the table looks genuinely confused, as if they can't understand what I just did. And so then they explain, oh, no. You should have been reading for this part, the part of the friend. Which I found out after I left that particular callback was also, among other things, doubling a Jamaican waiter. And that the part that I had read for was specifically meant to be played by a white actor only. Oh, okay.
And that's all you can do.
Right.
Or just take the role, like what Jeffrey was saying.
Yes.
Like how did you respond? Did you like still try to read the side, or did you like just leave?
Because here's the thing. It was sort of like a compounding disaster, because I found out in the room that I should have been reading for the friend. And I was like, oh, well, okay, but hey, I'll read for a friend. And then after I left, I found out, oh, that person also doubles the Jamaican waiter. And that's when I went, oh, no wonder I only see one other Black person in the room at this callback. Got it. Saw plenty of young white men, only one other Black man in the room.
Yeah.
I don't know whether or not that black man got the part, but I mean, I only saw 2 there, and I didn't get it.
Is anybody else concerned that one of the many white guys got cast as the person that was doubling as the Jamaican?
Wait, say that again?
I have a concern that in that show there was because there was just Dan and the other black guy, but there was a lot of white guys. Did one of the other white guys get cast as the friend who doubles as the Jamaican?
Girl, I hope not.
Okay, I got one more story and then I'm gonna be quiet, but I just realized what the question was. And this is one I really wanted to say on here just in case there's some people watching who might know what I'm talking about. So earlier this year, I accepted a role playing a maid, which, you know, you gotta work, you do what you gotta do. I had never done a straight play before, so I approached it as an acting opportunity. I was like, this is sharpen up my skills. Turns out it was very heavy and stereotypical, which I was like, okay, I'm just coming to terms with this. This will be okay. This is just a part of your acting journey. It's fine. So I go in and I approach it that way and I do it. I'm doing all my stuff and I have actually a discussion with the director about how I wanted to approach playing it because I felt so uncomfortable. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go have this conversation. I don't want to play her like Hattie McDaniels from Gone with the Wind. I see where you're trying to go with this. And that's honestly exactly what he asks of me. And on top of this, the kicker is not even that part. I was like, I was still okay with playing this role and doing this. I was like, I'm gonna give them what they want and be done with it. When we get to costuming and starting to do that whole situation, it is brought to my attention that I need to tie my hair scarf in a certain way. And now I'm like, okay, I've been tying my hair scarf for 22 years now. I don't think I need anybody's help with that particular situation. So this one costumer, this wasn't the actual costumer, this was their helper, showed me a picture of an Aunt Jemima-like figure with the smile on her face, like I posted this in one of the groups, so y'all can go find it somewhere, but with like the, like how they had in minstrel shows, the great big smile on her face with her hair tied up, talking about let's make some pancakes. And he goes, that's exactly how you should be tying your hair scarf.
Girl, and shut up.
Burn the whole show at that point. Burn it all down.
I'll tell you who it is after we get off of here, because I don't
please,
that messy individual, but this is a thing that happened. And when the nuttiest thing to me was when I posted it on this page, because I'm in the Black Undergraduate Theater Collective. I don't know if y'all know this group, but I'm in there. And so I posted it on there, like, I just need to vent before I go up in here and I fucking quit. So I posted it, and the magic of the internet, it gets around and it gets around and it finally gets back to the creative team that I am none too happy with the situation. So they let me know, and then this white dude who showed me the picture comes up to me telling me his shoulda, coulda, woulda, his I'm so sorry that this happened, I would have never, I'm not a racist, all that good stuff. I'm like, fine, sure, whatever. I'm not trying to be a diva or nothing. I just really had to vent because what you just showed me last night was completely and utterly unacceptable. And of course, I'm by myself in the room with this man when he shows me this picture. So when I finally, tell the rest of the cast what happened, they're like, "What? That could him? He's great."
No, I think you're overreacting. No,
it's insane. Cut to a week later, I had done the thing that he asked me to do. I come out on stage, and one of the production staff was like, "Oh, you gotta let Ryan know to fix her do-rag."
Shut up.
And our director's like, "No, we had a conversation about it. You're not allowed to say it like that." And I'm like, why is this a whole big thing
like that? You're not supposed to say that.
I'm like, how is this? What? Like, common sense would say to me, hey, we had an issue with being the only Black actor in the play. We had an issue with the girl. So how about everybody shut the fuck up? That should have been, when the director found out, he should have notified everybody that y'all need to leave me alone about this. Because and the comparisons to Mammy were insane. insane. I will never, never take a role like that ever again in my life. I was at a lot. I came home to my boyfriend that day crying. I was so frustrated and so upset and couldn't believe that I had taken this part and done this to myself. And I'm not one to give up on a thing. So I wasn't just gonna, like, it was like a week before the show happened. So I'm not just gonna quit. I'm gonna finish out what I set out to do. And then he just continued, the man who showed me the picture just continued to try to be friends with me. And I was like, I can't talk to you. I can't be around you unless there is somebody present. I really just, you did. And it's like, they didn't even acknowledge it. He was kind of just like, oh, that's cool. Like, I'm so sorry that happened and I would have never done this to you, yada, yada. But you did. Like, acknowledge the fact that you did a very shitty thing, and that's the end of it.
Shardai, do you have a story?
Yes, I do. So I went out for an audition for a show, and I went out for a particular role, and when it came down to narrowing down the field, there were two of us, me and another girl who was white. So this was a musical, so acting, singing, and dancing should, be happening.
Rubik's Cube.
So when it came down to getting cast, I did not get cast in this role. And the other girl who I was up against in this part, she got the role. Now, mind you, I had never worked with this director before, but I had friends who had, and they expressed like he is like a stickler for doing musicals, and he wants all three to be done exceptionally well. So I've worked very hard to be pretty good at all three things. And I was in the room auditioning with this other actor, this white actress, and she couldn't dance. Like, not at all. Like, her technique was not there. Her timing was not there. When it came down to it, she gets cast. So I was confused, right? So it turns out I got cast in the ensemble, right? Which was
Miles,
fine.
stop with your cup. Sorry, Shardai.
Okay. What was I saying? Oh, so yeah, I got cast in the ensemble, and other people that had auditioned with me, they're like, this doesn't add up. That things aren't adding up. How she got the role and you didn't get the role. And so I had some people that were on the casting committee at this place, and they were like, no, they cast her because she looked the part, right? And this role is traditionally played by a white female character. And it's like the princess or, the maiden character. So the director couldn't necessarily see me as a princess character. And so I turned down being in the ensemble, but I did stay on to work as tech. So I ended up being the stage manager for the show. And at one point in time, the lead actress that got this role got really sick. Now, mind you, I know the entire show in and out. They actually went out and got another person to be her stand-in. And here I am. And I'm just like, and the really crappy thing about it is that the person they brought in as the stand-in was a good friend of mine. So she's like, why didn't they ask you to do it? I know you know this show. And I'm like, because I'm not princess material. So yeah. So yeah, that's great. Love that.
Anybody else have anything else they want to say?
Was your friend a white girl?
Yes.
And yet, like, the thing that I would like to point out is your professionalism and not just deciding to kill the light board on them at every single performance.
I wanted to sometimes because I was, and everyone that got cast was like, Shardai, you should be playing this role. Like, this role is meant for you. But this director could not envision me. And I actually had a conversation with him about it because a lot of the other cast members brought this up to him. And he pretty much said, I can't envision you as this role. Like, I can't see you as like this soft maiden princess role. And I was like, okay.
He said that directly to your face?
Yeah. And I was like, you know, I'm like, I don't understand why you can't see that. You know, it's just like, you know, it's so out of some people's minds to like that other people can be princess roles or the love interest and things like that. And it's mind-boggling to me.
What exactly did he mean by he couldn't picture you being soft?
I guess I'm still trying to figure that out myself. I mean, the girl who got cast, who I'm also now friends with, she's a tall, very slender white girl. And I guess that's what he envisions as Disney princess, is a tall, very slender white girl with no curves.
White, lithe, and lovely, yes.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, like duly noted. But you know, it was an interesting time.
You know, I have a story, but it doesn't necessarily play on race, but the physical features still. In the same show that I was part of the administrative creative team for, the director and the president were given the opportunity to see a couple of video auditions from people that couldn't make it for the show. So the main character that they wanted was like, you know, of course, like this big main character. Everybody wanted to play this part. And one of the auditioners was a plus-sized male. And based on the video, he sounded great. He was fantastic. And we were trying to figure out when can we get him in. But the president and the director both did not want him to play this role because he had a belly. They did not envision this person to play this main character because he had a gut. And they themselves had guts, like guts. And then another person that auditioned for that same role was an older gentleman. And they didn't want to cast him as it because he was too old. But he had stage presence. He had a great voice. They ended up casting this person that had a great voice, but no stage presence, none at all. Like a board of wood had more stage presence than he did. So, you know, it's really unfortunate in situations like Shardai's and Ryan's and many other situations like that, where physical features and then just our features as Black people or BIPOCs actors, where these white theaters and directors and ADs just can't envision us in those roles.
Well, I'm going to go a little bit farther than unfortunate. It's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. And I know that we're laughing and we're joking a lot and we're having a good time talking about all of this, but think about the utter dehumanization at the root of all of this. The utter erasure of a person's complete identity. The erasure, and not only the erasure, but also the expectation that you will be put in these constantly challenging situations in which you are constantly expected to perform how someone else sees you if you want to stay working. I can't even begin to imagine being in Ryan's shoes and still going out and performing every single night.
It was hard, y'all, but you know.
I mean, but that takes a complete level of professionalism that you, with some people, you just can't find.
And that you were never granted.
Exactly.
You were never given that level of professionalism. How dare someone? How dare anyone?
The audacity
of the caucasity. I'm telling you.
Let's move on.
Yes, please. I'm a little heated, admittedly.
All right, the next topic, pre-scheduled seasons that are not Black actor friendly. When theaters post their seasons, especially a season with extremely popular shows, they always post shows that have had white casts. In addition, white theaters aren't even looking at shows that are centered around the Black experience or characters, which results in white theaters not seeing us or acknowledging us and our stories. Most Black actors will look at a theater season and will immediately determine that the theater won't even consider them. Mm-hmm. So I want you guys to explain a moment when you saw a theater season and said to yourself, yeah, no, that ain't for me.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Miles.
Well, no, I mean, I don't have enough fingers to count how many times that's happened at multiple, because it's always happening. And it just goes along with like not having the guts to try to do something different, not having the will to try to go out and find other BIPOC actors, and just staying in that comfortable kind of mindset of just, this is what we do, this is what we've always done, this is how we're going to do it again and again and again. And it's just like, yeah, it's such a common thing that I don't know how I could possibly pick a theater that not necessarily hasn't, but does often, deviate from that. Because a lot of theaters do the preseason kind of thing, but yeah, just multiple times. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the story of our life. I mean, what theater doesn't have a roster, in tune with roles that we can identify with? I have at one particular theater I was a member of, I've gone to the board at a board meeting and said, look, we just got through doing a successful Black show. If you want to keep the demographic of members of diversity that participated in this show, you need to put something on the roster consistently that they feel comfortable with coming out to audition. But unfortunately, for most of these shows, it's once and done. Okay, we did our part. We did a Black show. So I've
That's
so
our
now
diversity point.
I'm sorry?
That's our diversity point for the year.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. So at one particular theater, I made the same pitch. And this theater is in Bloomfield Hills. Birmingham. And they had never done a Black show. Now, they approached me and asked me to direct this certain Black musical review. All right. And in the production of it, they were very cooperative, very helpful. One of the members was upset because they couldn't audition for it because there was not a role for them. And, so I don't know why. I was like, I don't know why you're telling me, this is what the show is. Anyway, I explained to them, look, if you want to keep us and you want to continue to draw in this demographic, you have to put something on the roster for Black actors and actresses to come out and audition for. And before the show was over, they had already laid out the next season, and there was nothing Black on it, and hasn't been since. They haven't thought about doing anything else. And it goes right back to what we were saying earlier. A lot of these, especially when you talk about communities like Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, that's where there's a lot of generational wealth. And, they go back, some of these theaters go back generations where, they have built this theater up from the ground, and they've done things in a certain traditional way. And they've never done Black shows. That theater had never done a Black show. Another theater I've dealt with in Bloomfield Hills had never done a Black show, had never had a Black director. And after that, they went right back to business as usual. Okay, we did it one time, and okay, so we're good.
One thing that
I think
Oh,
sorry,
go ahead, Dinah. Go ahead, Dinah.
I was going to say, I think one of the bigger problems is they don't realize that the amount of work that it takes. I mean, they're willing to do the, from what I've been told, they want to put in shows that will bring the families, that family friendly shows. We want to bring them in. But if you have shows that are, for people of color and Black, that is a lot more work that they kind of don't want to deal with, and then you get somebody that will be, to start complaining, well, there's no roles for us. Where are we? What are we doing? But it's like, well, wait a minute, but most of your season has roles that aren't for us anyway. But you don't have a problem for that. But the one time, if you do it once, the one time that you can't audition for a role because it's mainly for people of color, you lose every bit of your mind. It's like, okay, yeah, we don't have equality here. The scales are not balanced in favor. But I don't know. It's just, to me, it's frustrating because most of the time it's they ain't looking for me. It's most of the time, and it's just, I don't know. I just sometimes, that's why I just end up just kind of plowing ahead, because I figure, well, I'll find a role and I'll go for it, and I'll see if they can see me in it. It happens sometimes. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it's a 50-50 shot. But most of the time, I'm just like,
I can't tell you how many times. I'm sorry, John.
Sorry,
go ahead.
It's the issue that I'm always looking at is when you have a theater company, and they had a season of 15 shows, and they have one show that has a focus on people of color, one show every couple of years, it starts feeling like we're in Hairspray and this is Negro Day. And you're just like, oh, okay, we finally got our one. We got our one. And so every person of color in the world that has ever existed in theater comes out but at one show, and they're like, they got a voice for us. And then that show usually ends up being very successful, depending on where you're at. And then you don't see it again for another couple of years. And it's like, okay, and we'll sprinkle it in, and we made you happy, and now you'll be subscribers for us, and now you'll be a part of our, and it's like, no, we're not here for that. Like, we came to support, but you can see the level of support that this has. But going back to Dinah's point, it is a level of work that is required to actually dig into what it takes to get people of color as directors, as producers, as actors, as stage masters, as the crew. Like, it takes a level of work that a lot of the companies are just not willing to do. It is that moment of, we got our one, we got our two. So we every once in a while, we're gonna call up Jeff and be like, hey, want to direct this one show? See, we're there. We got one. Okay, hey Dan, we're looking for a Black actor. And if anybody asks, like, well, you guys don't seem to cast a whole lot. What do you mean? We just had this great show directed by Jeff starring Dan. It was amazing. That was we're good now, right? Everybody should now want to rock with us, right? And it's like, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for equity. Like, there's a difference between equality and equity. I don't want equality. I want equity. And that requires a lot more work. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think that this might come as a shock to a lot of people, but particularly white people. Black people like theater too.
They sure do. They should.
A lot.
Wait, what?
Black people like theater. A lot.
Are you okay? Wait a minute. Are you talking about theater, like the thing on the stage with the
theater, the one that ends with RE?
I did a show where it was up in Birmingham, And I was lucky enough to get the role that I really, really wanted and I really, really worked hard for. And it was great and good. And there was also another young Black lady who I am still friends with to this day. And I remember us both getting cast, her in the ensemble and me in the other part. And just us sitting in the dressing room one day and being like, huh, I didn't even know that there was a possibility for two of us to be doing it. I thought they were going to pick either you or me, and then that was going to be it. And to a further extent, when my parents, who love and adore me and come to support everything I do, came to saw it, were the only ones in the audience. So much so that my mom likes to joke and kiki and laugh all the time. And so her post about going to see the show was like, I know my daughter's going to be great, but it really makes me feel uncomfortable being in just like the whitest room that's ever been. But it just, for me and this other young lady who is a Black performer, we simply did not think that they were going to cast both of us. We knew in our heart of hearts that it was going to be a me or you situation. So we kind of locked eyes. The audition was like, you good, girl? You good? And we went on our merry way because we just knew.
So what do you, getting to these questions, what do you think theaters can do to ensure that Black actors and other actors of color are welcomed in the audition? And how can theaters incorporate plays centered around Black characters and the Black experience?
First of all,
sorry.
I'm sorry. First of all, we need a seat at the table. That's the thing. We never have a seat at the table. We're not on their boards. We're not on their boards of directors. We might be on the play reading committee, but we're not in the seat of power. We're not the president of the theater. So when we don't have a seat at the table, the subject hardly ever comes up.
And while I am glad that some of these theaters have reached out to some Black actors and have made them a seat at the table on their board, y'all could have did that. It shouldn't have had to take something like this with what's going on with George Floyd or the many people. I can't hear you, Jeffrey. Your mic is on mute. It shouldn't have taken something like this, such as Black Lives Matter, for theaters to actually say, you know what? We need a Black person on this table.
But again, right. What are we talking about? Are we talking about actual equity? Are we talking about actual inclusion? Are we talking about actually bringing our voices and our perspectives in? Or are you just looking for one of us to co-sign what you've already been doing?
Yep.
Well,
because there's a difference between one and the other.
Well, I found out the hard way. You know, it's all good as long as you're on stage smiling and singing and dancing. But once you go in trying to make change, trying to make effective systemic change, then there's a problem.
Yep, because now most places, particularly when you have an egotistical AD or president, where they don't want to listen to you, but they'll use you as a figurehead. They'll use you as a body. Or if you do have Black actors that are on constant rotation at their theater, they won't listen to outside Black voices that are saying, well, you know, I did a show with you once, but I've never been back because y'all are on some racist bull crap. You know?
Oh, but this is one of my favorite. Okay, here's a secret. Explain a moment when you saw a theater season and said, yeah, they're not looking for me. Every single season. At theaters all across the state. One of my favorite things to do is give their problem that they're trying to give to me back to them. Your season is not Black actor friendly? Well, I am a friendly Black actor. I'm showing up anyway. I'm auditioning anyway. And I'm going to remind you, because I'm going to keep showing up, that the only reason that I am getting passed over for these parts as opposed to somebody else is ultimately due to how I look racially. Not because I can't do the part, not because I don't try to be easy to work with, not because I'm not professional, not because I don't show up with lines memorized. It's literally just this. That's all. And when it comes to talking about those issues, and when it comes to actually doing something about those issues, I absolutely agree with what Jeffrey was saying. It can't just be picking the one show. It can't just be casting the 3 Black actors. We're talking about addressing a problem on multiple levels. One of the things that I keep coming back to in terms of theater audiences is that art is powerful and art has the ability to transform minds and experiences, but it also has the power to condition minds. And if you condition audiences to see only one kind of thing and accept only one kind of thing or only one kind of perspective, then over time, that's the perspective that they're going to have and they're going to carry. So in some ways, this is a problem that creates itself. You know, you condition audiences to only accept the one Black story a year or the one Latinx story a year, or you condition them to expect and to love one Black actor, but you exclude everyone else from the equation. So I honestly think it has to do, you know, how can theaters incorporate plays centered around Black characters and the Black experience? Well, incorporate the Black experience into your theater before you start talking about play selection.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You got to do, like how we as actors, we research roles. You got to go out there and research the plays. There is a rich amount of, you know, theater that incorporates the Black experience. But if you're only looking for that one well-known, so you can say, oh, I did my Black experience show and then move on. That's not how any of this works. You have to put the work in once again to find the plays that, you know, that incorporate, incorporate the experience and leave your audience and actors with something to think about and want more. Mm-hmm. Like, don't, you know, it's kind of like being at, you know, you go to a dinner and you're expecting to be fully fed and you get like this one piece of food right in the center. And they're like, isn't that great? That's what you've been looking for. And then as soon as you like, okay, you eat that and then, you know, you're still sitting there with an empty plate. Isn't that great? We're going to give you some more, you know, like years later. And then they give you the same piece of food. Like, wait a minute. I just had this like a year ago, 2 years ago. What about this play or that play? And they have to be willing to listen. That's the big thing too. Research, be willing to listen, and then put that into action to bring more people in, you know, to bring in people of color, to bring in, to bring in Black actors. Go out, go travel, go to other places where you know the theater is and do your research. Do your research. Bring that work back with you and then put it into action.
And honestly, if theaters are really being smart, they would know that aside from doing popular Black musicals, like say if they did The Wiz and then they did In the Heights, and then, you know, when you do shows that have people of color in it, those end up being not just shows about people of color with people of color, but if you end up having shows with people of color in it, those end up being the most profitable shows. Period. And I know that I just have a feeling, because theaters do this all the time, that a whole bunch of theaters are going to get next to normal and they're going to have a Black cast for it. But I would love to see an all Black rendition of Next to Normal, because that right there shows the Black experience, because it's a human experience.
Y'all listening? Make it happen.
Yeah, because watch, you'll see it next season. You're gonna see for 2022. I'm sorry, for 21-22, for next season, there's gonna be a whole bunch of theaters that's doing Next to Normal, and they all doing a Black cast.
I mean, but will we, or will we just see 58 theaters trying to do Ragtime?
You don't need to do it again.
because Ragtime has Black people in it.
Right.
Okay.
And
Sarah
Ragtime
Brown Eyes is a great
is the
song.
Black experience story.
Right.
The
Right.
only one, the only musical.
Well,
Girl, don't get me started on Ragtime.
I would like to think
that
you're inspiring people with theater. If you're going to do theaters, if you're going to do, you know, plays that bring Black people in, you're going to inspire more people to want to come out from young to old. You want to inspire people. You want to have that impact. So get out there and do it.
Yes.
Anybody else have anything to say before we move on? Okay. All right. So next up is publications and reviews on Black actors' work. When reviews come out, stop, Dan. When reviews come out, anxiety rises. Some actors seek the validation of their work and some avoid reviews altogether. Unfortunately, reviewers still can't go past a Black actor's skin color. Even if the show doesn't have any direct ties about race, reviews will correlate a Black actor's performance with them being Black. So explain a moment when you experienced or you read something about a Black actor's performance based on their skin color. And how can entertainment news outlets do better when addressing Black actors and actors of color on their performances? Dan, you've got that itch that you need to scratch, and I know you do, so please, by all means.
Okay. All right, fine. Are we going to talk about Negrogate? Okay, yes, we're going to talk about Negrogate. So there was a show a few years back. It was a period show that featured a Black actor in a supporting role. This particular Black actor is phenomenal. I think a lot of people know this actor in the community. I think a lot of people love this actor in the community. I have gotten the opportunity to work with this actor personally. I think he is full stop one of the best, one of the most professional, one of the most light up a room kind of actors that you will ever have the opportunity to run into. I can't recommend him highly enough. The review of the show came out, and in reading it, the particular line was that this particular actor was heartbreaking as the Negro.
I'm sorry, what?
You heard what he said.
Yes, this actor was heartbreaking as the Negro. And then went on additionally, I believe one more time, to refer to this actor as the Negro. In the first place, this particular character did have a name. The character's name was listed in the playbill. The character was addressed by the character's given name by several other characters in the show. And in fact, the only character in the show who referred to that character consistently as Negro was the character who eventually wound up, spoiler alert, killing that character at the end of Act 1, which is an entire other discussion that we can get into later. Reading that not only set me off, but I immediately went, God, how much does that have to hurt for that actor? To put in all of this work and to know that they're already working on a period piece, and to know that they're already going to be working on a period piece in which they are referred to by a name that is very racially fraught and loaded. And to know that they're going to be working on a piece that deals with racism inflicted on their character. To know that they're going to be dealing with a piece that culminates an act with the racially motivated murder of their character. And to be willing to show up and be professional and do all of that work and give the kind of performance that this actor gave, to have that entire experience boiled down to this person was heartbreaking as the Negro. That to this day is something that does not sit well with me, and thankfully it didn't sit well with people at the time.
It shouldn't.
No. And there was another local actor in the area, very highly respected local actor, who called the reviewer out and initially demanded that they retract the interview. And then when they did not right away, publicly called out the publication and the reviewer for that kind of review. The thing that was difficult in the response by the publication was that the reviewer claimed that they were referring to the character in the manner in which other characters referred to that character. Which in the first place, again, the character had
Can't
a
hear
name.
you, Ryan.
You say hell no.
Yeah, right. Well, see, again, because in the first place, the character had a name. In the second place, as I think we've covered many times before, if a Black theater professional is telling you that something is a problem, and you are a white theater professional in any capacity, your response is not to go, well, this is how I meant it. This is how you should be seeing it. This is what it actually, the response needs to be, I made a mistake. How can I fix it? Because again, to have any kind of other response privileges that white theater professional's feelings over the actual trauma of a Black theater professional. And you can extend that to this entire country. All Lives Matter or Blue Lives Matter is privileging white feelings over Black death, period. So I think just acknowledging it, in the first place, I apologize to everyone out there, peace and love. It is frustrating to me to have to ask white theater professionals to please consider Black experiences. I admit that is a bit personally frustrating. Because on the other end, it's just an expectation. Again, I think I said this previously, when I walk into a room as an actor, I'm expecting white male heteronormative freedom. Because white male heterosexual actors or white male heterosexual theater professionals or white theater professionals in general already walk into the room with an expectation that their experiences aren't going to be discounted or that experiences aren't going to be explained back to them as somehow being problematic. You know. Ooh, that was a long-winded answer.
But when you were talking about white cis hetero male ADs, you got to also remember the white cis LGBT ADs as well.
Yep.
Because while they may be part of the marginalized group of LGBT people, they can still be racist. It's unfortunate, actually, it's unacceptable. I'm dropping unfortunate, but it's unacceptable that you have this privilege as a white man and you're not acknowledging any type of Black experience or any BIPOC experience, and you only want shows that are geared towards you specifically, or something that's geared towards white people specifically, and you don't even want to acknowledge anyone else in your shows. And when you do have a Black body in your show, disrespect ensues entirely. And it's hard to really even trust a theater after horrendous experiences like that. You know, you would think that someone who is part of a marginalized group would respect another marginalized group. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't happen, especially when you have the privilege of being a white cis male. Mm-hmm. Anybody else have anything to say?
I don't necessarily have a personal story, but yesterday, just like to piggyback off of what Dan was saying, I heard a story about Audra McDonald, and when she was doing it was like the late 90s version of Annie. I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen that one, but that was one of my favorites growing up. And in this production, she plays a character that's traditionally supposed to be played by a white lady. And I guess they had done their final cut of the movie and everything was great, but a reviewer or somebody came out and was like, well, certain parts of the country aren't really going to be interested in seeing Victor Garber, who played Daddy Warbucks, proposing to Audra McDonald, this African-American woman. And so they went back on a Saturday, mind you, which I guess in Hollywood is ridiculously expensive to do. And they had to reshoot the scene so that it would not look like that Daddy Warbucks and Grace had this romantic entanglement. So they went back and they fixed it to make them look more like friends. And that is how the movie is cut now. I never knew that story. I heard it. There's a Black Lady conference that's up on YouTube right now. Mm-hmm. But she went into detail about how these people made her. She said she felt very embarrassed, because I don't know if at the time, but I know now she's married to a white man. So all of that swimming around in her head. And then what this reviewer said, and then the fact that they actually spent ridiculous amounts of money to go back and reshoot the thing that was fine to begin with because of what a reviewer said.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Shardai.
So a personal experience. In college, I had the opportunity to audition for a period piece, and I got cast, and it was the lead character that I got cast in, which was traditionally played by a white female. And even more so, it was an Irish period piece. So, I was called upon to have an Irish accent. So we opened the show and someone came out to review the show, and all they could talk about in the review is how it was so weird that this Black girl had an Irish accent and how unnerving that was. But they're like, she was really good at it. But just as they gave me a compliment, they were like, but she was too good at doing the Irish accent and I couldn't understand what she was saying the entire time. Now, well, it was incredibly difficult for me because I had put in so much work. I was doing 3 hours of Irish accent practicing a day. And we had maybe a month to put up this show. So I worked my butt off. And to hear that's all they got from the entire show was that it was so weird and it was off-putting and how it was so strange it was very disheartening for me. But to turn it all around, because where we did the show, we weren't in our home location. We performed in another location, so we had more people had access to come and see it. And it just so happened that there was an Irish couple from Ireland that happened to be in town that happened to come and see this show. And at the end of the show, they came to talk to me. And they're like, what part of Ireland are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm not. And they were blown away that they're like, this American Black girl had such a great accent. And they're like, no, we understood everything you were saying. It was a complete delight. Like, this was fate that we happened to be in Michigan at this time to see this. And so that's the flip side, the awesome side to the story. But it was very difficult listening to this reviewer completely bring up the color of my skin repeatedly and how strange and weird it was for me to be in this period Irish piece.
Real quick, that same reviewer told me that she knew I had French in me because of the arch in my eyebrows.
Yes, it is that reviewer. We all know who this person is.
Except there are Black Irish. I don't understand how
Exactly.
that is so off-putting.
Exactly.
There are Black Irish. I mean, and I believe that she had to find something negative to say. So, oh, well, you know, she was good, but not too good because I couldn't understand it.
Right, and I actually have Irish heritage in me. So, you know, there are Black Irish people in the world like that exist.
It was too hard for her to comprehend that because she couldn't expand her scope of understanding that during the transatlantic slave trade that Black people actually was sent to Ireland. Quelle surprise.
Yeah. Shocker.
Yes. So let's move on.
History lessons. I love it.
Let's move on to our final three topics, and they kind of blend into each other. And they're on a much positive side because now we're going to be talking about our experiences as Black actors with other aspects of Black theater. And so the first one is finally working with an all-Black cast. For a Black actor, there's nothing more invigorating than working with an all-Black cast. The energy is entirely different, but happens too infrequently. So tell me a moment when you finally worked with an all-Black cast. I'll go first. Oh, go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead.
I was going to say, because Jeff and I were both in this certain production, and it was my first and my last. It was something. I loved it, but the thing that really got me was our director was a Black man, but this was not how it was originally supposed to be.
Okay, wait, Ryan. Let me jump in first.
No names.
Since we talk about no names. No names. Okay. I was originally, well, at this particular theater, you have to, if you want to direct a show, you have to do a presentation to the board. And I was one of the three people who did it, who did a presentation. Okay. So 2 of us were Black and 1 was white. Okay. The other Black person was not in the running at the end of the 3 presentations. Now, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I know my presentation rocked because I had PowerPoint presentations, I had a budget, I had it.
Talk your stuff.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, at the end of the day, they gave it to the white director. I'm like, okay. After everybody was cast, and then I ended up getting cast as one of the principal roles. So about 2-3 weeks into rehearsals, the white director had a quote unquote mental crisis and dropped out. Now, they didn't come and search me out and say, okay, well, since you were close second, why don't you want to take over as director? Nope, they gave it to the assistant director who happened to be Black. Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
It informs so much because I didn't know that backstory at all.
Oh, yeah. Oh, there's some other stuff you don't know.
Like, I didn't know that. So it's just puzzling to me because even this comes again, this is the same theater was trying to do another very Black show, but only had a white director in mind. What is that? Why are you trying to voice your opinions over our stories when clearly, like Jeff just said, you have people chomping at the bit who are people of color who are trying to direct these shows. I just assumed in my little mind that no Black directors were going out for these things. But if that's clearly not the case, and I enjoyed working on this show that we're talking about, and it was a great
I did too.
I'm so glad that I had that, because I had never had a full Black cast before. Like, just the way that I've grown up, I've always been the one girl. Like, oh, Ryan's the Black girl over here. We can go ask her to riff and belt and do whatever. So this experience was very an incredible experience to have, but also there was just so much background stuff that
microaggression.
Yes, that it was bananas. Or like, to me, everything should have been by Black people for Black people. I love the person who did the hair, but how in the world are you gonna do a fully loaded Black show dealing with Black hair set in the 60s and not have a person of color doing that? Like, you don't know anything about how to do my hair.
Not just a person of color doing the hair, but if you have a Black cast, you need to have a Black hairdresser. Period.
Exactly.
Period.
Well, so let me jump in and tell this story, Ryan. I don't know if you were gonna tell it or not, but it's been burning a hole in me. I got to get this one out.
So
let it out. Let it out.
We were in, I think we were right in we were about to go into dress rehearsal. So we had a full run of the show that night, and it was at the end of the rehearsal, and they were giving notes. So the costume person came up, and she said, so listen, I want to remind all of the guys in the class, I want you in the cast, I want you to remember, bring black socks that you can wear with your costume. And then she laughed. She said, well, I guess you don't really have to, since you're already Black. You don't really need black socks.
I remember that.
Stop. Wait a minute.
So everybody was like, so listen. So I'm like, this is the expression on my face, like, what did she just say? And so, because most of the cast, they were new, and they were, most of them were like Ryan's age, they were young 20 somethings, they were new. And so it was a lot of nervous laughter, like, and I'm like, she didn't just say what I think she just said. And then, she went on to say what she had to say. And I'm waiting for somebody, like the director or one of the producers. I'm waiting for somebody to say, look, that joke was in bad taste. We apologize. She shouldn't have said that. I'm waiting for somebody to clean this up, right? And so it never happened. So afterwards, some of us are talking like, dang, we don't need black socks. And I went straight home. Now I'm the oldest one in the cast. I was one of the principal players, but I'm the oldest one in the cast. And I'm a member at the theater. Most of them were new. I went straight home, started writing emails, started making phone calls, and long story short, we'll deal with it later on. Oh, I'm sure that's not what she meant. It was dusted down. It was they tried to muffle it.
It's
And
always that thing of like, oh, I couldn't have possibly meant this.
Yeah.
Well, bitch, you said it.
And then this same person. So, we had to kind of let that go and muscle through. So now we're running the show. And this one particular evening, I came down and asked about a shirt, because she said that the costume person said that she was going to bring shirts and something like that. Anyway, it had to do with the shirt. And I said, do you have the shirts that we're supposed to wear? Because I brought one from home. And she says, oh, we'll get to it. She said, we'll get to it, but don't be so bitchy about it. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. We almost didn't have a show that night because they had to take me outside and calm me down. It takes a lot to get me going, but that was it. I couldn't take anymore.
That would mess anybody up.
You know, and it was like you said, it was like these little microaggressions that were totally unnecessary. And you know, I don't call people that. I don't call people bitch. I don't say that to
Right.
anybody. Especially in a diverse setting like that. I would never say that to anybody.
So then
Period.
let's go on to the other two topics, and I'll just blend those two together.
Mm-hmm.
Explain a moment when you finally got the chance to work with a Black director, and the moment that you got the chance to work on a Black script by a Black playwright. I'll go first because I've been wanting to talk about this. And I'm speaking about this in a positive light, so I have no problem expressing how I feel in regards to this show. My first professional show, Who Will Sing for Lena, was such a pivotal show for me. I love that show entirely because, first of all, it was a show where I got the chance to really flex my acting ability. It was a one-woman show, and I had to perform 15 different voices. And not only that, but because of the depth of the show and the traumatic events in the show, I had to reenact a rape. And I had to sit in an electric chair and be electrocuted. But being able to perform that show 5 weekends, 5 weekends for the duration of the show was one of the best experiences that I could have ever asked for in my entire acting career. And my director, Cassandra Freeman, I can't even begin to thank her enough to this day. And this was 3 years ago. I can't begin to thank her enough for giving me that opportunity to tell a Black story with me in my all as a Black woman. Thankfully, I didn't have to wear no makeup, so I was really proud about that. But I was just really glad that I could tell that story and to really just to put my foot in it as best as I possibly could. And if it wasn't for a director like her giving me the different nuances of what I needed to be aware of throughout that entire show, I would have never been able to execute that show the way that I did. And I still think that I have a lot more work to do on that show if I ever had the opportunity. But yeah, that was definitely a heartwarming experience. And then just recently I was in Ain't Misbehaving, and having an all Black cast was just something that I would never trade that energy for anything in the world. It was the first time that I actually did get the chance to be in an all Black cast. And the energy between that versus other white casts that I've been in is completely different. It's a complete game changer. And those two experiences I will never trade for anything else in the world.
Okay, I've got 2 experiences of this. Okay, these are positive. These are positive. So I will name specific names with these. Apologies. I know we weren't supposed to do it. I'm going to say it anyways. The first one, Firepower at Detroit Repertory Theater, directed by Lynch Travis, starring David Glover, Cassandra Freeman, Jennifer Cole, Will Bryson, Jonathan West, and myself. A play written by Kermit Frazier, a Black playwright. That show meant so much to me. In the first place, history on every level. It was a play about history. It was a play set in a historical time. At the time that I was working on that show, and I remain so. I was the new kid in that group of theater professionals. I was literally in a room with people who combined had well over a century of experience. And what I learned being a part of that process, and what I learned about being an actor and about being a Black actor and a Black theater professional, and getting the chance to tell a story about our experiences and different kinds of our experiences. My particular character was a graphic artist from Chicago who was trying to convince his boyfriend to come out to his dad. That is a Black experience that many people have, but you don't get to see it as frequently on a stage. So getting a chance to tell Black stories and a wide range of Black stories meant so much. To me personally, I found it so rewarding. I found it so fulfilling. I found it so uplifting, not only in terms of who I am as a professional or try to be professional, but also as a person. The second one happens to involve two people on this panel today. It was a production of Kill Move Paradise by James Imes, Black Playwright, that was done at Theater Nova. And this production starred, he knows I'm talking about him, so he went away. Jonathan Jones, Des Walker, and Miles Bond. The four of us played young Black men who discovered that they had become victims of police violence. It was the hardest show physically I've ever done. It was the hardest show emotionally I've ever done. But again, getting the chance to tell a story that centered our experiences and our perspectives and our pain and our terror and our joy and our ability to create even in the darkest of circumstances and our ability to find hope even at the most desperate of times. They saved my life on that show. They all know that. I think the world of all of them. Yes, you, Jonathan Jones.
Anybody else want to say anything?
I'll put.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Shardai.
I'm gonna be that person after these two really great positives. I have just had a moment of revelation that I have never worked with a Black director before. I've done over 100 shows in my life and I have never had a Black director before. It was hard for me. I actually had to think, I thought of this one at the last minute. I'd never been a part of an all Black cast before. So, I mean, I thought of one I did a couple years ago at Box Fest with me and another person, but that's the only all Black cast I've ever had. And I've never done a show by a Black playwright. Like that was just a moment of realization I just had. And I even brought out my resume and my everything. And I'm like, I've never worked with a Black director before.
Well, as a Black director, let me say something from my perspective. I've gone into a couple of theaters and done their very first Black show. 3 theaters, as a matter of fact. So, you know, I was able to help those 3 theaters make history. But my first experience was with an August Wilson play. And as a Black director, one of the things I found most disheartening was the fact that, when I'm slated to direct a show, I see everything. I don't just focus on the acting and the blocking. I know how I want the blocking. I know how I want my set design. I know what I want the costumes to look like, all the way down to the little bow on your shoe. I know what I want it to look like, the whole thing. But what I found disheartening was the fact that I was always second guessed. Well, why do you need that? Well, why do you need the stairs over here? Well, this is too much furniture. This is too fancy. They're supposed to be poor. I know what I wanted to. How are you going to tell me how a Black family is supposed to be poor? Just because I understand that it's supposed to be during the Depression, but I know I have the artistic say so. I'm the one who says, as a director, what it's supposed to look like. I know what it's supposed to look like, but I was always second guessed. Oh, you don't need that. Well, that's not in the budget. You know, and that was the most frustrating thing for me as a Black director, trying to, you know, do something new in this white theater. if it wasn't that, it was something. If they weren't questioning my artistic ability or my artistic concept, then it was something. At one show they asked me to direct. Um, they had everything in place because you go in these theaters, you know, you don't really know people, and it's hard to get people to help you. So they didn't have one show. They didn't have anybody to do sound. I'm not a sound person, but I had to jump in and do it and learn it because we didn't have a sound person.
Mm.
And you know, some nights the sound was pretty whack. And I told him, look, I'm not a sound person. You need to get somebody in here. So it's you know, it goes on from there, but it's very frustrating. A Black director, it's a very frustrating world to live in.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Especially when you were talking about you were constantly second guessed. Like if you've been doing this for a while, you know exactly what you want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure.
You know.
Sure.
So just real quick, because our time is running short. What do you guys think are the necessary steps white theaters need to take to have one or all of these different elements in their season?
Well, I think at this point you're talking about a way forward. Oh, sorry, Jeffrey. But I think you're talking about what can theaters around here do to actually begin the process of change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you're talking about how to get this change to happen on multiple levels.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we're talking about something that needs to be addressed on multiple levels. Going back to what Jeffrey said earlier, I think it's absolutely important that theaters do the work of reaching out to people in the community with engaging them, not just expecting, you know, because you tend to hear that sometimes, like this idea that, you know, our door is always open. Okay, cool. And you say that, but then we walk into these places and we can tell that you're not really trying to engage Black people or Indigenous people or people of color in terms of your play selection or in terms of how you cast or in terms of the people that you pick to direct or in terms of the people that you pick as designers or in terms of the people that you hire, you know, in terms of the apprentices that you might choose to have, in terms of the front of house staff that you have. You're not actually trying to engage us on any level. So do the work of engaging us, you know, for a start. And then once you bring us in, like, listen to us, you know, because like Jeffrey said, we have experience. We have experience. We all love theater. We all love and cherish this as an art form. We all want to contribute, and we all want to contribute to this idea that theater is for everybody. You know,
I think one of the things we're probably going to have to contend with in the next season is, you know, from all these theaters is just, you know, the apology tour. You know, oh, we want to include you, and, you know, oh, you matter, and, you know, oh, it's just horrible what happened. But I think once the novelty wears off, I'm afraid we'll be right back to where we started.
Oh, no. At least on my particular end, no, we will not be back on our particular stuff. We're moving forward on this. This isn't just a one-time thing. This is an ongoing thing. Part of the process of transformative change is that it is transformative and that it is ongoing, and that this is not something that the issues that we are talking about, the lack of representation, the privileging of whiteness, the expectation that we should be grateful for what we're given and the conditions in which how we receive it, that we should be grateful for that we should be grateful to put up with racism, we should be grateful to put up with marginalization, we should be grateful to put up with erasure and dehumanization. That is not going to be fixed by 5 theaters deciding to do Ain't Misbehavin' next season. This is ongoing. And,
or ragtime.
Right, or ragtime. Bless you, Audra. We're past it.
Ryan did that show, so we're not picking on you, Ryan.
Oh, we'll have an entirely different conversation about that at a later date. But yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, but
I would just
moving-
say have an original play festival for Black theater writers.
yes.
If you want to do that, reach out and get some original Black theater, and then you can have casting for Black actors. Reach out and reach out and get them in. That's how you can do it. And real quick, just saying, shout out to Angie Mitchell for Women in the Workplace. That was all Black cast for me women, and Black and Brown theater directed by Emilio Rodriguez. Cloud Spinner. I was able to play Mother Cloud. So yay! Thanks, guys.
One thing that I will say, and I love that Jeffrey touched on this, is that like I said before, I've already started seeing some of the performative allyship, and I'm not here for it at all. Because like I've told somebody else that performative allyship is multifaceted. It's an unacceptable behavior by these different theaters where you put up your Black block on your Instagram or social media pages and say, yes, Black lives matter, absolutely. But then you don't do anything to actually progress from it, and then especially it definitely irritates me when theaters are using Black bodies for their profitable gain, and then they don't say anything for weeks upon end or say anything at all. Because how does that even equate? You're using Black people in your shows to profit for your theater, and then you don't say anything in regards to Black Lives Matter, or you wait a really long time before you say anything, or you only deal with the handful or the half of a handful of Black people that rotate in your theater, but you don't want to hear outside Black voices. I have a real problem with that. Because all our voices, exactly,
Yep, go ahead.
all our voices matter. Whether if we've performed in your theater once or 1,000 times, all of our voices matter. And you have to respect that. And if you create different racist excuses of not allowing other voices to speak, then you're a performative ally. And I'm not here for it.
Well, I think not speaking up about it also as well, just staying silent is also the biggest problem too. Not even necessarily like sideswiping the topic, but just like avoiding it completely, and just like at this point action would definitely speak louder than words at this point. It's one thing to talk about it. There's one thing to actually go and do something about it as well. And the inactivity just speaks a lot more, and the not seeing this kind of stuff being changed speaks a lot more than what you're posting somewhere. I want to actually see people who look like me on, backstage, on the board, on stage, of course, but like mostly the people who are like picking these shows and doing that. I want to see more of that intertwined as well.
Seat at the table.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, unless that happens, there's like no real attempt at inclusion for our voices and our talents and all that stuff. It has to go back into breaking down what we systematically know and are adjusted to, breaking that down completely and just building up from that. That's what I really want to see.
Here's the lamest thing that I've experienced since this whole thing with George Floyd. Right after that, about 2 weeks after George Floyd was killed, one of the theaters that I mentioned reached out to the cast of Ain't Misbehaving. That was a show that their only Black show that they did, and asked the cast if they would all go on, this type of format and sing We Shall Overcome. And everybody was like, we kind of looked at the post like, what? We shall overcome? You want us to sing "We Shall Overcome." How is that supposed to make us feel better? We shall
It's
overcome.
not. It's supposed to make them feel better.
Exactly.
Exactly. Mhm.
Exactly. And we were so insulted. We were so insulted.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. Go ahead, Ryan.
Y'all been getting messages from people who you haven't worked with in eons and eons, but somehow out of the blue, these white people that I've performed with are suddenly asking me if I'm okay or do I need anything. And to me, if I'm close with you and we're good and we're good girlfriends or whatever, fine, ask away. Like there have been a couple who have been like actually close to me. But if you're just coming out of the woodwork like right now and I haven't talked to you in years, what are you doing? Go
right.
It's always about reaching a quota for most people, and that's so irritating. Like I'm like not just like some number or some just group of person. I'm an actual person, and that and like for you to treat me like that is horrible. While I do want to touch on Ryan's other point, and by saying it has meant something that the friends that I'm actually close to and talk to have reached out. It has. But it's just as going as far as like, what can I do to be better? What can I do? Yada, yada, yada. It's just like, I'm not supposed to be here to be that person for you. I'm not supposed to answer all these questions. I'm not that one Black person, that can do that. You have to Google it. You have to learn how to, do it yourself. And while the sentiment is, nice and somewhat appreciated, it's a little as well insensitive.
I mean, we were happy to learn Shakespeare, so, y'all can be happy to learn Susan Laurie Parks.
Girl.
Period. So let me just go ahead and read our closing statement, and that's on theater moving forward. So today and 2 weeks ago, the Q&A, and next week is the second part of the Q&A. All of this has been hard. All of this has been hard to talk about, but it's an extremely necessary conversation. So now it's up to the white theaters, the ADs, presidents, directors, boards to take the necessary steps to be more inclusive, to go above and beyond in creating more diversity, and to make their theater a more equitable place to work. One thing that I definitely want to stress on in the professional and community theater world is that you do not, under any circumstances, expect your Black actors or any other Black theater professionals to look for other Black actors or theater professionals for you. That is not our job. Do not expect that of us. If you are an AD, if you are a director, that is your job if you're trying to look for more Black actors or POC actors for your show. That's your job. This is not a if you build it, they will come situation. And that's it. I mean, it's just as simple as that. Recruitment is the job of the director and governor, the director of the show, and the AD. If you're trying to find those people, you need to go where the people are and promote the show that way. As white theaters begin to make these changes, there will be a drop in your white audiences. So expect that. It's unavoidable. However,
but again, which white audiences?
The racist white audience members. However, you will gain more audience members of color, and this will take time. It's not going to happen overnight. So keep in mind that the 6 theaters that I mentioned in the first week that are Black owned or POC centered, please, by all means, go support them. Please donate to them. This is not a way, this whole thing of us talking about it, it's not a way of pulling away from their theaters so that way all other Black actors can perform in these white theaters. That's not the case. So please, by all means, still support those theaters. But as there are only 6, we have to be accepted everywhere. Everywhere. And me, my panelists, we're not going to take this lying down where we're just going to accept anything. This is our battle cry. I remember reading a quote from Shirley Chisholm. If they won't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. This platform right here is my folding chair, because you're not going to make a seat for me. So I've got my own chair. Does anybody else have anything to say now that I'm off my soapbox?
It's just been an amazing. I hate I missed the first one. This has just been amazing. You know, I've had I had a lot inside of me that I needed to get out. And, you know, aside from going to therapy, this was just the perfect platform for me to do that. And I appreciate this so much. But you've trotted a path here. You know, we have to keep going.
Yes.
You know, this can't be the end of it. You know, there's a lot more we need to discuss. There's a lot of other topics that we need to talk about. And so this is the perfect time. You know, the climate is right for something like this.
I can't even begin to express my wholehearted thanks to all of you, my other panelists that were on the week before, and everyone else that has supported us in these live episodes. It's definitely an overwhelming feeling, and I appreciate it from the absolute bottom of my heart. But again, this is not just to be trending. This is to be an ongoing creation for all of your BIPOC performing artists. Does anybody have any closing things that they would like to say? No?
Just
all right. Oh, go ahead, Miles.
Sorry. No, I mean, just that, I mean, it to be said as well, this isn't just a learning process for any white people out there. This is also a learning process for the BIPOCs in the chat or in whoever's watching this, you know? I mean, it's all about learning to advocate for yourself as well. And it's all about, you know, just having the sensitivity to accept feedback. So that's what this has really been for me. And yeah, just thanks. It's been amazing.
Yeah. So I know we ran a little bit longer than what we wanted to.
That's okay.
That's trying to cut this at 2 hours, but I mean,
we got stuff we got
stuff we want to say, and we appreciate those who are listening.
We can't go anywhere anyway, so hey.
Right. Dan, did you want to say anything?
No, I was just going to say, one, performative allyship in the absence of actual actionable and transformative change is nothing but a cynical attempt at appeasement to maintain the status quo. Two, yes, absolutely. Advocacy for all of us, but also advocacy together. We may have different particulars, but when it comes to theater, Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, Latinx people, LGBTQIA artists, all of us are facing the same struggle in one way or another. And yes, we have been talking about Black theater because Black theater needs to be talked about. And we have been talking about our experiences as Black actors because we as Black actors need to be talking about these experiences. But theater needs a transformative change.
Yes.
On all fronts for everybody. And I guess finally, thank all of you. Thank anyone who's been listening. Thank you, Ashley, for providing this spectacular platform for all of us. I love y'all.
Love you guys. I really appreciate this. Thank you again for watching. You get mega stars for sitting through us for 2.5 hours. But yes, if you want to watch the first part is available on the BLAQN Facebook page. If you do find it in your heart, please donate to the 6 Black-owned and POC-centered theaters that I mentioned in the first one. If you feel extra generous, you can donate to the BLAQN organization. My Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal information is in the descriptor. Thank you again for watching. My name is Ashley M. Lyle. Thank you to our panelists, and we will see you guys next week for the Q&A part 2.